Just to give a little bit of background, AXUM is a platform powered by Green Tech Capital that aims at matchmaking between investors and entrepreneurs in Africa, global investors and African entrepreneurs. The project has a Pan-African ambition, and we realized, well, we knew it before, but we're really realizing the importance of the role of enabling organizations and support organizations like yours, and the importance of the work you're doing. That's why I wanted to bring you to start this conversation on ecosystems and how we can basically embody more the role we want to embody within the ecosystem and play it in a way that would strengthen and help mature everything that is going on in Africa and support entrepreneurs better in a more relevant way. As a starter, I would love to hear more about yourself. Who are you, Sara Fakir?
Once again, thank you for the invitation. I'm originally from Mozambique. I'm Mozambican. I can't say anymore that I'm a young lady because I'm over 40 already. But still working with very young people who makes me believe that I'm still very young.
I decided that you will be young until 60 at least.
But I'm an entrepreneur, a mentor, and a business angel. But starting with a little bit of my personal background, I'm an economist by training. I was fortunate enough to do my studies abroad in Lisbon to start. But when I came back, and I think it's important to refer that while I was growing up, Mozambique was living a civil war. So I'm from the capital, Maputo, but during my young ages, we weren't able to travel in the country. So when I went to the university, I knew very little about my own country. So when I came back, I started my career on the corporate world in consultancy, but that gave me the possibility and the opportunity to travel all the country and also start traveling around Southern Africa. Know people, know different realities, and know, in fact, all the opportunities that people used to say. So African is a continent of opportunities. And obviously I couldn't realize what those opportunities are until I start traveling, knowing different places and knowing different people. So that was a very rich part of my life. It was tough. My mother used to ask me, so you came home, but now you just come home to wash your clothes and you are on the road again. Yeah, but it's the work I have to do. But it was very interesting at the beginning of my career to get to know all these places and the reality, not the city centers, but the reality of the rural Mozambique in the region as well. And every time I came home, and by seeing all this beautiful, the landscape, the natural resources, there was this thing at the back of my mind, because I realized that people who were living in those places, they were not envisioned those same opportunities that I was able to see. And I understood that we were not seeing the same things because we are not using the same land. We didn't have the same experience. We didn't have the same academic background. So a few things were missing there, so that people could start envisioning what they have in front of them as real opportunities. Africa is, in Mozambique in particular, it's full of problems. There is a lot of challenges, and all of them can become a real opportunity to overcome and make a business out of it. so with all getting this experience, make me understood that maybe I could be also part of the solution. And then some point in time, I decided to quit my job and get a full-time entrepreneur, by launching Idea Lab and co-founding Idea Lab together with Tatiana, and was also so I work in business, in consultancy. I had an experience. So after that, I went to the oil and gas sector to do business development. So I was also able, through my professional relations, to know a lot of people, create strong relationships with people that were doing many different things, and be part of the business environment here in Mozambique, and knowing the players, which also helped to then to establish my business and get partners and so on. Yeah, but it's a little bit of what I did prior Idea Lab. I also consider myself a very curious person. I'm always looking for different ways of doing things. I'm also very energized by people, and especially the ways they find to overcome the challenges they want to solve. In fact, that energized me a lot. So I think that this experience and the things I like and what motivates me in some point in time brought me to do what I do today.
I love it. Thank you. What made you decide to go full-time entrepreneur?
Well, before Idea Lab, I had other business experiences, and I had my profession, so I was doing both of them. And as the business was growing, and I also met mentors and talked with people, different people. And I had this mentor that told me that you are not putting your energy where you should be putting. Do you trust on your business? Do you trust on yourself? Do you think that you have the means to do what you want to do? So if you have, do it. And don't share your main resources, what at that time was time, with other things. Get focused. So I decided to take that advice, and at the time I did it, definitely Idea Lab was able to grow and become a proper business and an organization. But I was struggling, trying to do both things, and I had to choose in one point in time.
You know what resonates a lot in your story is also the Civil War. So you grew up in the Civil War, and what age did you go to Lisbon to study?
At the age of 18. So I was already, well, this is at the time I finished school. It was a time to go to the university, and I had this opportunity to study abroad, which is very, very important experience in my life. You know, suddenly going out of your comfort zone, starting living alone, met many other people. I still remember that on those days, the Erasmus program that happens in Europe, where young people are changing places and having different experience. So I was I wasn't an Erasmus, but I used to hang around with people from many different places, and obviously all of them impact me in some sense. They expose me to different things, to different realities, for different cultures. And I think that this is the kind of experience that is very important to to grow and to as a person. So I think this was very enriched.
I agree. I also had a very similar story, and I was talking to Selma Kabaj this morning also for the virtual chats and the virtual coffees. And she has also very, not the civil war part, but just migrating very soon and discovering other countries before coming back and building an entrepreneurial support organization. So there are a few. What made you want to come back to the country and build in the country?
I don't think that for me staying out there was a possibility. I couldn't envision that to myself. So at the time I decided to go abroad to study. I knew it. Obviously, many different things could happen, and different ways could occur. But my desire was to come back. So when I finished, I did some work to get some experience. But as soon as I could, I came back home.
The next question, and then we can move forward in the ecosystem. But the civil war component, how did it play a role in your journey? What role can you say what role it did play in your entrepreneurial journey, maybe more specifically, but in general as a leader, how did it influence you and the role you're playing in Mozambique today?
I wouldn't say the civil war directly, but there was a few events. So if we notice, before Mozambique became independent, the Mozambicans were not allowed to do business. So the business were done by the Portuguese. When we became independent, Mozambique adopted a socialist regime, where also people weren't able to do business. So the collective production and they used to call it
planned economy.
Yeah, so there was many different definitions for this particular period, but the truth is that people were not in business and were not doing business. In some circumstances, if you were caught doing business, you could end up in a camp or something. So the private initiative was not incentivized. So in the 90s, suddenly with the openness of the economy, I don't know who came out and said, no, you can do business. So it's allowed to do. But in fact, in Mozambique, we still don't have a generation that have fully success have success in business. So we are ages back on this movement of doing business and building wealth and so on. So I think that especially that period when I was very young, I used to live in the building where in the bottom there was this cooperative. So you had to have a card to go and buy your groceries and things like that, long ago. But for me, that was, I think, it makes sense. So from what I do today, enabling new business and looking back, and I still have very strong memories of that time, is definitely something that it's embedded. So that it's part of the history, and coming out from that and bring the transformation that it's needed on the mindsets, first of all on the mindset, and then on the practices and the processes, and until we have an environment which in fact enable business. We are not yet there, But I think that that experience and that part of my life, I think, resonates on what I'm doing today, and how I can support people coming from that background and experience and particular moment in history to a new age, or on a new positioning where they can take off their lives and empower themselves and be empowered and supported to take their dreams forward. And even the word dream, it's very difficult, especially in the local language in the South. It's difficult to find a direct translation, which is in fact when you want to ask what is your dream, what is this? So it's limited for the by definition.
Wow, I love it. I love everything you're talking about, especially like in a leadership conversation, the importance of just, embodying this role of birthing this new world, or like birthing or accompanying the movement of all this new generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. And I think it's the perfect transition to just start talking about Idea Lab and the work you're doing with Idea Lab. What is your role? Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. So 11 years ago, together with Tatiana, we co-founded Idea Lab, which is an entrepreneurship support organization. And we did it with the guiding purpose of inspiring entrepreneurs and bring this entrepreneurial mindset to people's life, supporting the development of startups and accelerating the growth of SMEs. By doing this, and together with other people, trying to strengthen the ecosystem and create a more enabling environment for, especially for young people to get into business and find their place and be able to develop the solutions they want to. So that is what we do. We do it through many different programs, depending on the entrepreneurial stage of the business, and together with different partners as well.
How many startups do you have, or entrepreneurs do you support today? Or have you supported, did you support in the last 11 years?
I must be honest. So on the beginning, what we really wanted to do was to do stuff and work with people and mentoring them. But only 6 years ago is when we start understanding that, well, if we want to keep doing this, it's very important to register and measure impact. So we have to put all the process in places to be able to do that. So since 5 years ago, we were able to train more than 4,000 entrepreneurs and support directly more than 1,200 business. We have a huge community of almost 40,000 people. We have been operating in Mozambique, but also in Angola, and doing specific projects in the region. So working, so we separate the entrepreneurs because sometimes it's a smaller intervention, but when we talk about the business supported is when in fact they went through our programs, incubation or acceleration programs, and receive a more robust support as well. Apart from the training, we offer them also mentoring, business advisory, connections, and bring the other ingredients and connecting them with market opportunities, investment opportunities, but also to bring as much as possible market information, business information, which is also a bit scarce, or at least not easy to find.
Yeah, I love it. And how do you, 4,000 is a great number. It's amazing. And the community of 40,000 people is pretty incredible. I was wondering, in terms of support, or everything that shows up, in the needs of the entrepreneurs you are supporting today, what are the common needs that come up, and what is your role in bridging those gaps?
Okay. So, well, we support entrepreneurs in different stages of their business, and what I see is in different stages they need different kind of support. But we always try to bring together, apart from the business knowledge and business understanding on a way of doing things, link them especially with mentors that can help them to better understand the business that they are doing, and support them on the decision making process, because the life of an entrepreneur, most of the time, it's just by himself taking decisions, and it's hard to do it. So it's also important when you have someone by your side that you can build a relation of trust, especially someone that has more experience than you, that can allow you to avoid the mistakes that they already did, that they have done before. Mentors are very important because of that. They haven't been able to go through all the pain points, but at least the ones that they have, they usually are willing to share, so that you can avoid those mistakes. And especially because of my not only mine, but also Tatiana, and also the team today it's much bigger. We had past relationship with different professionals. We are able to connect them. In terms of investment, well, we didn't have many alternative ways of bringing investing and financial support for those entrepreneurs. So together with a group of friends, we also co-founded the Business Angel Association in order to bring up the movement of local investment and bring people to get this interest in understanding how, in fact, they can support the ecosystem. So being part of the ecosystem, okay, we have a very specific rule in taking care of the startups and supporting they grow, but also there is all this other work in creating bridges and bringing people in, because the ecosystem, it's a living place. Sometimes people, they have time or the interest. For many other reasons, in some point in time, they don't have this availability anymore. So you need to nurture the space and make sure that you have as much as possible people by your side that can complement the work that you are already doing, because we can't do everything, but with the right partners and with the right people, we can go much further and bring the best support we can.
Perfect transition to my favorite topic ever. It's the topic of ecosystem development and community. What is the importance of ecosystem for you? Like, we know there's a community, and what everything you've been talking about here is really the importance of relationship and how you interact with other actors and partnerships and how you build together. And I'm passionate about it because I'm pretty certain that in the transition we're going through collectively, if we don't transition in terms of how do we collaborate with others to stop reinventing the wheel and just start really co-creating and playing our roles, right, roles as we embody them instead of what we think we should do, and just try to be it all and do it all in an environment. Well, when talking with other actors, like I love defining ecosystems and finding biomimicry and just replicating the biomimicry to entrepreneurial ecosystems, like really thinking of an ecosystem as like in a forest, if you have a flower that grows in a forest surrounded by trees, it will have so much more chance to survive and grow and be like something bigger and beautiful, and have like other flowers just grow around her. And if you put the flower like in an empty field, if there's wind, the flower disappears. And it's the same thing for entrepreneurs. Like the entrepreneur is the flower. It can be very fragile and vulnerable in an empty ecosystem where there are no trees guarding and structuring the growth. And just this image and how it brings in terms of roles we're playing. What tree are you? What flower are you? What are you bringing to the table in the biodiversity of this ecosystem? Like for AXUM, knowing that our role is in green tech's expertise, for instance, in investment readiness, because the platform is powered by green tech, in knowing that AXUM's platform is a support for matchmaking between investors, global investors, or we have the outreach, and the outreach is like the global scene of ecosystem supporters, entrepreneurial supporters, and international organizations and things like that. That's for the outreach. Our role is very much defined. So how do you consider, do you think about your ecosystem? How do you evolve in it? And how well is your role defined within your ecosystem?
I think, well, first I can't think in one ecosystem. I can think on a Mozambican ecosystem, because even in Mozambique, there are many different realities, there are many different, so usually to each part where we go, if there is a place we haven't been before, we try to figure out and map who's in fact it's busy working in developing the private sector here. And we noticed that from place to place, different organizations might have different roles in different moments of time. So I don't think that it's straightforward or in terms of thinking on a very big ecosystem. And I think that you said something very important. We need to grow and evolve together, but we also need to realize that not all the spots in the continent are exactly ready to do the same. So we also we can influence and support that development, but definitely there should be the champions of those ecosystems that are there on the day-to-day and that need to work to make it well connected. And while you are making it well connected, you are also strengthening in the terms that there will no space for the wind to come. So on the legislation side, or on having the support of the universities and research centers that can also bring a contribution to this. Having organizations like Idea Lab that are supporting the entrepreneurs, but we can't do this together. We also need organizations that, as Green Tech or other banks or other financial institutions that can understand, and because I think the people who are acting in the ecosystem, they understand that there is a particular value to do that. Even the corporations, when they get involved when they want to work with innovators and young entrepreneurs, they are also looking for alternatives for their own business, and especially community, how they can innovate in their own big business, but they are looking for this expertise outside, and the talent and the energy of the movement as well. So I understand that in different places the ecosystem can bring different players. Even here in Mozambique, I work here in Mozambique, but also in Angola, and I can see that there are different players, kind of players, acting in the ecosystem. Sometimes you have more political will in terms of making the entrepreneurship something part of the country strategy. Sometimes you don't have that, but you have a private sector that it's aiming to support and see this value of working with young innovators. Sometimes you the development organizations are leading and bringing to the countries this kind of expertise and support. So different ecosystems, different work in different ways. I think it's very important to map, understand each one of the players, and be a catalyzer on bringing. I know that it's very difficult, because sometimes frustrating, because you think that, oh, I'm doing all to try to bring people together, and it's relevant for all, but there are timings and there are moments, and sometimes it's not exactly the right person. So it takes time. I think it's important to accelerate, but it takes time. And what I also see, in as much as we are working with others, peer organizations in the region, we also are trying to figure out, but how can we really be connected? Obviously, today we have technology that allow this connection in a much easier way. But I still that in the country, in the continent, we are still not looking to each other as potential partners. Most of the time, we are looking for our business partners or even markets outside the continent. Which I think limited a lot the potential of growing that particular business. So I think that it's and historically, it's not easy to connect African people. I think that there is still this feeling of mistrust. Easily we connect with someone who is from far away, and I think that we need to start being more open and discuss this, and create the proper relationships that can allow these relationships to be more sincere, more honest, more open, and if you are able to do this on a personal level, easily, or it might be a way to doing it on a business level as well. I remember it's so expensive to travel in the continent. Sometimes you have to do more than 3 or 4 connections to get some point. Sometimes it's easier to go out of the continent to move from one place to another. And this is a reality. If we are not, I know a lot of Africans. Most of them, I met them abroad, not in fact here in the continent. So I think that we still need to bridge those relationships and reduce the space among us. I think it's very important, and that will give a different business perspective for the entrepreneurs, and also a different market perspective. We used to say, no, we have a market of 1.2 billion people, but this market is not related. This market, it's not apart from the trade agreement, the new trade agreement for the African Union. Apart from that, we are still not doing business to each other, and I think that it's not good. And if there is a role to play into the African ecosystem, is in fact to build bridges among people, to support this exchange between entrepreneurs and business, so that we can have open doors to this big market that we have, that can be useful for all of us to grow in the different aspects.
Yeah, there are many topics in what you just exposed. The first one that came to mind is really like the geographical scope of what an ecosystem is. And it made me think of, the GSER, it's the global startup report, ecosystem report from Startup Genome. And in the methodology they use, the ecosystem is citywide. It can't be beyond. We live in a country, you have like many ecosystems. You can't compare the capital city's ecosystem with a rural ecosystem in terms of agencies, and an entrepreneur or someone from a rural area who's an entrepreneur won't interact in the same way with institutions, with support organizations, won't have a hub in close to him or her, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very relevant to think of ecosystem in a geographical way and really relocate it, instead of talking about one global ecosystem, or like connecting multiple ecosystems is what about, like when I was thinking like, tell us more about your ecosystem, is the ecosystem you evolve and you interact with on a daily basis, which are like the organizations and things like that on a local level. And then how do you interact or connect to the global ecosystems or other ecosystems around the world who are also a layer of yours? But it's like, because when you're in capital city in Mozambique, especially you are very well connected. So of course you have access to an ecosystem or wider an ecosystem than another organization. So there are many layers to this topic on how we can leverage different type of organization, and also how we benefit from the outreach of other organizations or actors or players or agents we are interacting with from other countries, especially globally, or other countries in Africa. And then the second topic is also fragmentation, which is like the eternal topic we've been talking about in Africa. The anecdote I keep telling is a few years ago I organized an event in Algeria. It's called Startup Altitude, the competition. So we invited mentors from Africa and all over the world. And it was less expensive to bring like the mentor from India than from Nigeria, because or South Africa. So from South Africa, we needed to fly the person to Doha and then bring it to Algiers. And from Nigeria, they need to fly out to London before going to Paris, or to Paris before coming to Algiers, or from Paris to Algiers. And the tickets were just like, it was unbelievable. And these people, like, this network of mentors and trainers we brought to Algeria, we all met in the Global Entrepreneurship Network, at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, first in Colombia, then in Joburg. And it's an American organization who, like, we met in a framework that was built by a foreign organization. And the topic that kept coming together when we founded the Global Entrepreneurship Network Africa was that we are not, one of the problems we wanted to address is that we are not able enough, and we are not it's not an ability question, but we are not able in terms of connections, because we are not connected to each other enough to create spaces for us to interact, where we have the African network, unless we go through an intermediary who is European or American, or from somewhere else, which is very shocking. Like, you're like, okay, I would my network of African enablers and supporters, I would have never met them if it wasn't for an American organization like the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And that just blows my mind. It blows my mind how we are struggling to connect to each other, and the trust factor is one of them. And when we think of it in terms of empowerment of entrepreneurs and support entrepreneurs, within the ecosystem by bringing funding, etc., my question or the thing that I keep in mind is like, okay, we want to bring trust, to build trust between Africans and with also foreign investors to attract and draw more investment towards our countries. And how can we embody this trust, or how can we really reflect it if we are not able to trust ourselves with each other, but also ourselves with ourselves? Like Simunza from Bongo Hive was just saying that you can't forget that our countries were colonized more than decolonized. So there's still this, this pattern within us. There's the trust issue that comes up is also related to how we grow individually in our countries.
Communities, yeah. Definitely, yeah. I completely agree with you. It's a reality, and it's up to us to figure ways how to make it work. That's why I was saying that it's very important to find ways of and spaces as well to bring up people together and start the relationship on a personal level, because we need to culturally, we need this. Culturally, we need to know each other and have spaces of where we can have open conversations, and that's why it's easier to do when you are out of your space. That's why it's easier to connect somewhere else. Yeah. But we need to want this, and we need to make the effort to make it work. Otherwise, we won't benefit from what we have. The 1.2 billion people, the many different challenges that we have, most of them common, other not, or other need some twists to make it localized. It's not the big Africa. Each one of us, we have our own blended culture, because it is already completely blended by the geography that we have and the borders that we have. And it's very, very important. So we should find ways of doing this and collaborate more, and in being able to create reference for each other. I used to do this a lot. Maybe there is an opportunity, but linking people, you should meet, you should talk, find a way, half an hour in Zoom and get to know each other. It's like a Cupid trying to put people together. But well, I send a message. If they do, great. If they don't, it's a pity, but what can I do is to refer. So if we all were able to do this in one extent or another, it will be great.
How are you addressing it in your day-to-day? Because I know we had this conversation separately about the outreach and the connection, not only to the global network, but also a Pan-African connection or outreach. How do you connect to other ecosystems? And it's a topic that comes up constantly while I interact with enablers from Tanzania, from Egypt, from Morocco. The topic is constant. Like, how are we reaching out to other African countries? And it is a topic that many of the people I'm communicating with are wanting to address. As an Algerian enabler, it was also a constant topic. How are we connecting? The Gen Africa was also born from that. Like, we want to break the silos, break the fragmentation, and start interacting and building long-term and sustainable relationships with other people who are doing the same thing in similar markets, and also open up, become the joint to access to market within our ecosystems for startups from abroad, and vice versa. We create access to markets from each other's countries. We try to do that with South Africa, and so on and so forth. Did you think of ways to do that at your level, and how are you practicing it today?
Well, networking and looking for like-minded people and participating in different debates. I think now that you were speaking, I also think that probably AXUM should also have some tokens in the platform that can connect the different enablers, or a token where you can. I had an experience that might be worth it to share. So we are part of a community of practitioners that work on entrepreneurship development, and in those discussions, sometimes they can get very technically because it's about the learnings, sharing learnings. But that give me the sense that I'm not alone. In some aspects, in depth, we can share practices. How do we do things? How had we run a certain program? And it's on a very professional level, let's say. But at least we all know that we can count with each other in this community, at least for those topics. It can be very little, but it's every time that I'm blocked or I don't know how to do something, I know that I can go to that community and ask. So having this space of natural trade of knowledge and sharing and through that community, sometimes what emerge are particular projects that then, or challenges that we then get together, two or three organizations to solve that challenge, that particular challenge. And having those kind of exercises make people to be able to work with each other, and within time you start, having more open relationships and that can lead. We are not yet there because, in fact, for instance, startups that are part of our programs, they are not yet directly linked to the startups that other practitioners are. We weren't able to do that at that level yet, but it's good, and it's very helping to have the community there, and we collaborate from many specific small reasons, but we are there for each other. So I think it's not just having the community there, but somehow being able to find or figuring out topics of interest that can bring up discussions or interactions. I don't know yet what are the key topics that people would like to talk, but for me, I would be very interested to having this kind of discussions with other peers, for instance, and how do we approach startups? Not us as ecosystem enablers, but how can we profile the startups in a way that easily we can connect them. With the work I'm doing, so we have an entrepreneurship support, an acceleration program for women that we were doing here in Mozambique, but also in Angola. So in that program, it's quite easy to identify people that are in the same sector or that are experienced the same pain points in the business, or they are in the same stage. Sometimes they are not related, but they are having the same problems. They are not related in terms of sector of business, but they are having the same growth pains. So we are able to connect them. But when it gets large and we have more people participating in the program, it starts getting more difficult to do it. But it's amazing when you start seeing them doing business with each other and then coming back to you. It's okay, but now I want this product from Mozambique. How can we import? Can you help us here? Or suggesting us someone to talk that can work on the papers, and you know.
And I live for this. These moments, like the breakthroughs and the revolution when it happens, because
Yeah, it's amazing. Everything is worth it at that moment. The
exactly, I agree. Yeah, when you see the opportunity come through in the space you facilitate, you're like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing the job. So actually, I was just listening to you, and we're about to close the conversation. I would love to close on like an action item to maybe collaborate or have you facilitate, like we would bring our network of hubs and make it like, with the ambassadors of AXUM, and try this facilitation to strengthen the community. And would that be something you would be interested in, like having a Pan-African set of, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 ambassadors or enablers from Africa, choose a topic and do the play with them?
Definitely something that we can start thinking and designing.
Let's do it then. Would you like to conclude this conversation with something? Would you like to add something, to say something?
No, not much that I have already said. I just want to thank you again, and tell you that you can count on me to make this work. I think that the component that you are bringing, it's very important, not because it's money is a scarce resource for the companies, but especially for those elements, additional elements of connection that can be very interesting to expand the market, to create real opportunities for the startups, and not just an add-on.
Yeah, and for me, it's not only about the startups. It's also the hubs, the enablers, the innovation support organizations of every sort are struggling, and they are the backbone. Not all of them are struggling, but they're not scaling at a size we would like to see them scale. They are not having the outreach they deserve, while they are today doing all the work of supporting entrepreneurs and supporting innovation in Africa, and they are the backbone of what we call the African ecosystems. So, in my opinion, I feel like such a strong sense of mission in supporting those organizations first. Probably because that was my first, like I was a lawyer and I transitioned into being an enabler in Algeria first, and I see the impact we have with communities at the pace at which our communities grow, and the demand, and how the youth is thirsty for learning and for support and for capacity and everything related. And I would love to see also the conversation go through what are the opportunities we're creating for the hubs, for them to have sustainable business models and grow their revenue and diversify the revenue streams. So adding this question to the startup also support, I think we can really create like the success stories we want to see come through in Africa. Thank you, and see you soon.
See you.